morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to chapter 34. In the previous video, we were just talking about where deserts form. Remember 30 degrees latitude. We happen to be right at about 30 degrees latitude. Why aren't we a desert? We're not a desert because we have our one saving grace. Our one saving grace is the Gulf of Mexico. Let's talk about the different ecosystems that we find around the planet. What makes a desert a desert? What makes a desert is lack of precipitation, lack of rainfall. To be a desert, it needs to receive less than 10 centimeters of rain a year. I want you to keep in mind, for those of us who were raised in American schools, and that is that we don't know how much a centimeter is. To remember how big a centimeter is remember that in an inch, about so big, there are 2.5 centimeters. So 5 centimeters is 2 inches. So less than 10 centimeters means less than 4 inches of rain in a year. A desert receives less than 4 inches of rain in a year. Don't we get some thunderstorms in the summertime that we can get as much as 4 inches of rain in a day, 5 inches of rain in a day? Granted, that's a really bad storm, big storm, but it happens. And we're saying that a desert gets less than that in a year. Deserts are characterized by very little life in general. And I know you can see that there's a lot of life here, but it's all short-rooted stuff. What is the big stuff? A cactus. Where do we see the deserts? I'm not sure if you can see it very well on the video, but I know that if you have the PowerPoint, you can look at it and you can see where the deserts are. The deserts are located right around where? Right around 30 degrees latitude. Our major deserts are either located next to a mountain range, that rain shadow, which we see some desert here and desert here. The rest of that desert there, that's all at that 30 degrees latitude. Less than 10 centimeters of rain a year. Here we see another picture of a desert. This is probably most of our, what most of us think of when we think of a desert. Very few plants, lots of sand. What I do want you to notice, what do you see in the background? Mountains. Why is this a desert right here? It's a desert because what are we looking at? We're looking at the rain shadow of the mountains. Our next ecosystem is called chaparral. Chaparral receives between 10 and 20 inches of rain a year. Chaparral and grasslands, grasslands obviously are like the savanna, not in Georgia, the African savanna, large black grasslands, the entire central portion of America, referred to as America's breadbasket, giant grassland. Grasslands are grasslands because waters need trees. Trees need lots of water. There's not enough water in grasslands to support trees, and so therefore you have grasses. Chaparral receives a little bit more rain than grasslands do. Chaparral is short-rooted or short bushes and short trees. There was a show from the 70s and 80s called MASH. You might be able to find it online. Very characteristic intro shot of it was supposed to be about the Korean War. This helicopter flying in front of a mountain range, and it's flying in front of chaparral. And specifically, it was shot in California. It was not shot in Korea. Here we see grasslands. This is the African savanna. Viewers. If we look up here, we can see where we find these grasslands right around where we find those deserts. Here we see chaparral. Chaparral, notice how it's a little more desert-y than what we saw previous. Lots of short bushes, some short-rooted trees. We see chaparral around here, around California. A little bit of chaparral down here in South America. Chaparral around South Africa. All around the Mediterranean coast. And a little bit right there on the southern edge of Australia. Chaparral. Not much rain. Lots of drought and fire. We move from chaparral and grasslands to a temperate forest. Temperate forests are characterized by deciduous trees. Deciduous trees means they drop their leaves. And they get less than 130 centimeters of rain a year. 130 centimeters of rain, 100 centimeters is a meter, and so that's 39 inches. So 130 centimeters is 4-ish feet, give or take, about 4 feet of rain a year. Beautiful deciduous trees. Notice right here, what is that? That's the entire eastern seaboard of the United States. We find other, Central Europe is all deciduous forests. Extreme Eastern Asia is all deciduous forests. It was said before Europeans got to America that a squirrel could go from Florida to Maine without ever touching the ground. The entire eastern seaboard of America was a giant forest. America got rich first by selling its trees. By the time Europeans came over to America, most of the forested areas in Central Europe had all been cut down. Cut down for building materials, cut down for fuel. There were a few places that were protected, but lots and lots and lots, it was all cut down. So they get over here and they're like, holy crap, there's trees everywhere. And so they started cutting down all those trees so they could send the wood back to Europe. Logging. That's how America got rich. We move from deciduous forests to tropical rainforests. A rainforest is so called a rainforest because of how much rain they receive in a year. They can actually receive up to 2 meters of rain in a year. And when you think of a meter, you think of about a yard, 36 inches. Remember, a meter is 39 inches. So we're not talking about 6 feet of rain. We're talking about 6'6". If somebody is 2 meters tall, they're 6'6". Tropical rainforests. Where do we find tropical rainforests? In the tropics. We find tropical rainforests around the equator. Lots of direct sunlight. Because of the direct sunlight, we have lots of rain that falls. Heats up these oceans. This ocean water rises. That ocean water that rises then causes the rain to fall right back down again. Tropical rainforest. Why is it a rainforest? Because it rains so much during the rainy season. They don't have summer and winter. They have the dry season and the rainy season. Coniferous forest, conifers. You look out your window and you can probably see some pine trees. Coniferous forest, the habitats dominated by coniferous forest is generally at very high latitudes and very high altitudes. If you go up a mountain, it's basically like going very far north, and so you'll find that the deciduous trees give way to coniferous trees. Coniferous trees tend to do very well in extreme environments. So this here is a coniferous forest that, if you can imagine, it's just a big ring that goes around the North Pole. Big ring of trees that goes around the North Pole. Big coniferous forest. Tundra. Tundra is even further north from the coniferous forest. Tundra is characterized by short-rooted plants and lichens. It's not uncommon in tundra for permafrost to be less than a foot down. Permafrost, as the name implies, permanent frost. The ground is frozen and stays frozen forever. Plants can't grow roots in ice. If they can't grow roots in ice, then their roots can't be more than a foot deep in these really, really cold areas. In these areas where we have tundra, where we have permafrost, the growing season can be less than 2 months. We live in South Georgia. Our growing season is like 8 months long. You can grow stuff from March until October, November. You can have a garden that long. They can only grow stuff in June and July. And that's it. That's all they can do. After that, it gets too cold. Before then, too cold. After that, a 2-month-long growing season. Tundra. If we look out here, what don't we see? no trees, and even just a couple little bushes. If you look all the way up to the top, I'm not sure if you can see the gray. Tundra is just this slim patch of only a couple hundred miles wide of land that surrounds the Arctic, the North Pole. Short-rooted plants and lichens.